Welcome, friends of Middle-earth, to our channel, where today we tread the shadowed crossroads of ancient kingdoms and dark sorceries. Today we unravel one of the most tantalizing mysteries of Tolkien's legendarium. Could the mouth of Sauron have been the last king of Númenor? Stay with us as we delve into ancient texts, forgotten histories, and chilling possibilities whispered through the ruins of time. The mouth of Sauron appears fleetingly in The Lord of the Rings, a shadowy herald who confronts the captains of the West before the Black Gate. Described as a man learned in the lore of old and mighty in sorcery, he had long abandoned his name, casting it away as a relic of a past he no longer claimed. But could this forsaking of his identity hint at something deeper? Might he once have borne a name of great pride and lineage, perhaps one tied to the lost grandeur of Númenor? To explore this theory, we must first revisit the collapse of Númenor in 3319 of the Second Age, a cataclysm that swallowed the island kingdom due to the hubris of Ar-Pharazôn and the treachery of Sauron. It is recorded in the Silmarillion that Sauron, having corrupted the hearts of the Númenóreans, seduced their king into an assault on the Undying Lands. A transgression that led to the island's destruction and the reshaping of the world. Most of the Númenórean elite perished, but some, particularly the so-called Kingsmen loyal to Sauron, survived by various means, establishing realms such as Umbar in Middle-earth. Could the mouth of Sauron be among these exiles? A noble corrupted beyond even the monstrous ruins of Númenor's pride? The mouth of Sauron is explicitly described as a black Númenórean, a title given to those descendants of Númenóreans who fell under Sauron's influence after the downfall. But what if his station was even higher? Tolkien hints that the line of the kings was steeped in darkness in the latter days of Númenor, their pride twisted into cruelty and fear of death. If a scion of that bloodline had survived, it is not inconceivable that he would be elevated by Sauron, perhaps even kept alive through dark sorceries, stretching a mortal life unnaturally long in service to the Dark Lord. Moreover, the language Tolkien uses to describe the mouth's grandeur and power suggests a figure of old nobility reduced to mockery. His knowledge of the ancient lore and the way he speaks with both majesty and venom aligns hauntingly with the remnants of Númenor's once great kingship. Could it be that, in a bitter irony, Sauron placed the last true heir of Númenor's kingly line not upon a throne, but before the gates of his fortress, to mouth his will like a twisted parody of royal heraldry? If we press deeper into the remnants of ancient lore, another chilling thread emerges. In the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales, it is said that the Kingsmen of Númenor who survived the downfall became obsessed with mastery, domination, and the pursuit of deathlessness. These survivors, embittered and steeped in the black arts taught by Sauron, established dark havens along the coasts of Middle-earth, most notably Umbar, where they ruled as tyrants, hated by the free peoples. From among these corrupted lords, it is not beyond reason to imagine one so favored by Sauron that he was drawn into Mordor itself, trained in the deepest of Malephantums, and ultimately made his man. In considering the mouth of Sauron's unnatural longevity, we are reminded of the grim fate of the Nazgûl, mortal kings of men, who were ensnared by the rings of power in circa 22 of the Second Age. Yet the mouth of Sauron is distinctly not a ringwraith. He remains a living man, his body intact, though his soul is clearly enslaved, and it suggests a different, perhaps more harrowing preservation, a twisted vitality granted by dark sorcery, unmoored from the mortal decay that claimed ordinary men. Such arts would have been the deepest gifts of Sauron to his most loyal followers, especially those of Númenórean heritage, whose pride would rebel against the natural end of life. The timing bears consideration. If the mouth of Sauron had been born during the later years of Númenor, say around 3200 of the Second Age, he would have been a full-grown man by the time of its downfall in 3319. Transported to Middle-earth, his natural Númenórean longevity, already far exceeding that of lesser men, could have been monstrously extended by Sauron's arts. allowing him to stand at the Black Gate over 3,000 years. Later, in 3019 of the Third Age, when he confronts Aragorn and Gandalf, such endurance would not be impossible for a man of Westernesse, if fueled and defiled by the dark will of Mordor. Even more telling is the description of his visage, cruel and ancient it seemed, and yet filled with a hideous vitality. These words summon the image of a kingly figure brought low by centuries of degradation, a reflection of Númenor's own tragic arc, from the highest pride to the deepest ruin. In him might be seen not just a servant of Sauron, but the final and bitter echo of Númenor itself, made mockery by the very power that it once sought to usurp. Seen through this lens, the mouth of Sauron becomes more than a mere herald. He stands as a grim symbol of all that Númenor became in its final years, proud, learned, ambitious, and utterly fallen. If he was indeed a remnant of the royal line, then in him lies the final, debased memory of Elros Tar-Minotaur, the first king of Númenor, who had once been a great and wise ruler in Second Age. What a bitter legacy it would be if the mouth, a twisted wreck of arrogance and cruelty, descended from such a noble beginning. It is no coincidence that Tolkien's writing consistently frames the fallen Númenóreans as obsessed with death and mastery over others. As described in the Akallabeth within the Silmarillion, their fear of death led to envy of the immortality of the elves and to an unquenchable hunger for power. In the mouth of Sauron, this hunger finds its ultimate expression. A man who has forsaken even his name in favor of absolute servitude to a dark lord, in exchange for the preservation of a hideous half-life. This was the ultimate irony Tolkien often explored, that the attempt to escape death leads only to a more terrible death in life. Moreover, the mouth's behavior before the captains of the West, his mocking speech, his cruel display of Frodo's possessions, his desperate attempt to break the will of Gandalf and Aragorn, echoes the arrogance of Númenor's kings before their downfall. In his scorn for the free peoples and his blind devotion to Sauron, he unwittingly repeats the mistakes of his ancestors, who bowed to Morgoth's former lieutenant and brought ruin upon themselves. It is as if the very spirit of Ar-Pharazôn, the last king of Númenor who defied the Valar and perished beneath the sea, lives on in this dark mouthpiece. Tolkien's broader mythos hints that nothing of evil is wholly original. Rather, evil is a corruption of what once was good. Thus, the mouth of Sauron could indeed be the last king of Númenor, not in title but in the tragic sense, the final heir of a fallen house, ruling not from a shining city by the sea, but from the ashen plains of Gorgoroth, his crown a helm of mockery, his throne a dark lord's doorstep. In Tolkien's cosmology, as revealed in Morgoth's Ring and the nature of Middle-earth, the fate of men is one of the greatest mysteries, a gift of Ilúvatar, their mortality setting them apart from the deathless elves. Yet it is a gift easily misunderstood, and in the hearts of the Númenóreans it became a curse. Their rebellion against the doom of men led directly to their fall, and the mouth of Sauron could be seen as the ultimate cautionary figure, a man who rejected his fated end so completely that he became a living blasphemy against the will of Ilúvatar. The corrupted lifespan of the mouth thus takes on deeper significance. Unlike the ringwraiths, whose existence is an unnatural suspension by the Nine Rings, the mouth represents another, perhaps darker form of defiance. He seeks to master death not through enchantment alone, but through a willful surrender of soul to a greater evil. His is a spirit so hollowed out by allegiance to Sauron that it clings to life as a parasite clings to a dying host. If, as Tolkien often wrote, death for men was meant to lead them beyond the circles of the world to a destiny unknown even to the Valar, then the mouth's refusal to die could be seen as the supreme tragedy. Where Elendil and Isildur, the faithful survivors of Númenor, embraced their mortality even in exile, the mouth represents the other path. A refusal so absolute that it transforms a kingly heritage into a grotesque mockery of life. There is a profound symmetry in the idea that Sauron, once a servant of Morgoth who defied the natural order, would preserve a Númenórean remnant as his greatest herald of defiance. In the mouth, Sauron wields not merely a herald, but a living insult to the designs of Eru Ilúvatar himself. Here, Tolkien's layering of tragedy upon tragedy becomes evident. The glory of Númenor, the pride of men, the peril of seeking deathlessness. All find a dark culmination in the twisted figure who stands before the Black Gate, speaking words that are not his own. Thus, in the mouth of Sauron, we find not merely a lieutenant of evil, but the bitter ghost of a kingdom drowned by its own pride. Whether or not he was truly the last king of Númenor in blood, he stands as its last king in spirit, the embodiment of its downfall, its corruption, and its final mockery. In him, the glory of Elros's line is reduced to ash, speaking not with wisdom or mercy, but with threats and falsehoods on behalf of a tyrant who had once been their undoing. When Gandalf confronts the mouth before the Black Gate in 3019 of the Third Age, he does not debate with him, nor dignify his claims. Instead, he dismisses him utterly, as one might dismiss a shadow that once was a man. And in that dismissal, we glimpse Tolkien's ultimate judgment, that those who forsake hope, humility, and mortality for power and fear become less than they were meant to be. They may linger in the circles of the world, but they have lost their place in the true story of creation. The theory that the mouth of Sauron might have been the last kingly remnant of Númenor thus deepens the tragedy at the heart of Middle-earth. It reminds us that greatness without virtue leads not merely to destruction, but to a hideous parody of itself. The towers of Númenor once gleamed in the light of the Two Trees' memory. The mouth of Sauron stood before the slag heaps of Mordor, a king without a kingdom, a voice without a soul. In Tolkien's world, history is not merely a chronicle of victories and defeats. It is the unfolding of choices, of the refusal or acceptance of the Creator's gift. The mouth of Sauron chose servitude over freedom, deathlessness over destiny, and so became a monument to the very folly that drowned Númenor beneath the waves in 3319 of the Second Age. In this he serves as a grim warning for all peoples of Middle-earth, and for us who read their story. Thank you for joining us today on this deep dive into one of Tolkien's most haunting mysteries. If you enjoyed this journey through the shadowed paths of Middle-earth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. What theories do you have about the true identity of the mouth of Sauron? Until next time, Melonin, walk carefully through the long twilight of Arda.